right now is crazy because I would say I am the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. Hello. This is a very sudden video that I actually did not have planned for my Making It Diaries video. This one's also completely unscripted, so this is going to be an interesting one. I have been mentioning a lot that I just don't have time to be filming, so this is a very quick video. I think hopefully quick. As you can tell from the title of this video, I quit therapy, and so I'm just gonna be really talking about my experiences with therapy and why I quit. And unfortunately, it is not for the positive reason that you might think, that I quit therapy because I'm suddenly cured and all better. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Disclaimer, like, I am still not completely mentally stable, and I don't necessarily think any of my thoughts and opinions are right, but they just are how I feel, what I feel, and it's how I function from day-to-day life. And so it is what is getting me through. And you know, maybe one day, I mean, this is Making It Diaries, one day I'll get to a point where I can look back on this video and see like, oh, I'm in a much better place now, much healthier mindset. But right now I'm doing what I need to cope with life. We're just gonna start right into it. So I have done therapy for about 6-ish months at the time that I'm filming this, and that was actually the longest period in time in which I did therapy. So basically, a little rundown of my mental health. I have had like depression like my entire life. I am actually not diagnosed, but I know I would pass that test. Like there's no way I wouldn't. Yeah, I've struggled with depression since I was in high school. I mentioned it a little bit in my single video that like I grew up with a lot of friend issues, and basically it was just a snowball effect. It wasn't one particular, I mean, there was kind of one particular tipping point, but that was because it was like building up until then. Yeah, so in elementary school, I didn't really have friends, I mentioned, but like I kind of got bullied. And then at this time, I mentioned that I don't really have the best relationship with my parents, so it's like the kind of relationship that I like, you know, everyone needs someone to love them, and for me that wasn't really my parents. So then I sought that out in friendship, so I put a lot of like investment and emotional kind of like energy into friends, and I expected a lot out of them, and that just didn't really work out. So when that didn't really work out, I got really devastated. And so yeah, middle school, same thing. I enter and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna finally make friends in my life, and it got better, but it wasn't like great either. Like I still didn't really have friends. I still was always part of friend groups that didn't really want me in their group, and it's just kind of always been like that. And then so I entered high school and the same thing happened. In this case, this one hurt the most because at this point I had been making friends, and then all those friendships came like tumbling down. And yeah, I eventually had my own friend group for the first time in high school, and it just fell apart. They really hurt me. And honestly, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just kind of like, I don't know, friend group issues that happen. I feel like no issue was particularly out of the ordinary. Those things just generally happen. And so they weren't any different. They weren't any meaner than like your average mean girl, or like they weren't even like maybe bad people. But the timing in which of like having all those negative experiences in elementary school, all those negative experiences in middle school, and not having like a strong family support, at this point in my life I was very fucking lonely. And so that developed into depression and anxiety, because I felt like nobody loved me. I didn't really belong anywhere. And so that just obviously developed into like the anxiety and the depression. So yeah, I've had that like my entire life, and I'm now like 23, and a lot of what happened back then impacted me. And I didn't even finish, but like also, yeah, I went to college and I actually experienced a lot of very similar things with like friend issues. And basically, like as I grow up, I started to gain friends like year by year, but the thing is the progression was really slow because not a lot of people can put up with my personality. And, you know, that's just the luck of the draw, you know, whether or not, like, I don't know, I was the problem or it's just unfortunate circumstances. It just is what it is. And I just kind of don't like to think deeply about that a lot anymore. It's really easy to just resent life, you know, and that's kind of where I'm at, versus resent myself, because if I resent myself, who is going to love me, you know? So like, that's, I think, one takeaway that I've had, in my times with like life. It's just, those high school people that really like sent me over the tipping point, even if they aren't actually objectively bad people, I'm just going to hate them because that's what makes my heart comfortable. And I know hatred is like a bad thing and you have to let go of things sometimes, but for me, I kind of just hate them and just move on. You know, the past is just the past. But if I'm supposed to go back and forgive them, then I feel a little sorry to, like, you know, the Wendy who went through all of that, and it's just who's going to be on her side if I'm not. So it's just kind of how I've been processing it. So that's a little bit of history on my mental health. I don't think this was the video meant to be into the nitty-gritty. I think my bigger point is to talk about therapy. And so obviously I've struggled with all these issues my entire life. I'm not gonna lie, I think all through high school, I was very resistant to the fact that I was depressed. Like, people would suggest it to me, like older friends, and I was kind of just like, oh, I don't really know though, because depression and sadness felt like two different things. Depression felt like chronic, and like no matter what happened, you would not be happy. Whereas sadness was kind of like if this one situation got resolved, you would be happy. So like because I didn't have friends, I was thinking as long as I get friends, I will be happy. And now that I'm old enough and I've experienced enough trauma, I do have friends now, but it isn't still happily ever after, because now those events that shaped me when I was younger have now like permanently shaped how I see myself. And I just didn't know that at the time, that was how I like would continue to think about myself. And like now that I'm an adult and reflecting, I'm like, oh yeah, like this is how I feel about myself, in terms of like my self-esteem and just the way I view myself in a very negative manner. But anyways, yeah, I was very resistant. I never did anything kind of mental health related until I really started college, and even then it was very, very late. So like my best friend has always been an active promoter of therapy. I've had friends that have like tried therapy as well, and it was just kind of like I was resistant to it because the time I just feel like I wasn't depressed enough and my problems weren't real enough. And yeah, I don't know, I just kind of got used to living that way. And honestly, I don't have a real reason why I didn't start therapy earlier. Like I really should have. I think I would have benefited it most in high school when I was young and things were still a little bit more changeable, because now I'm older and a little bit more set in my ways. So the first time I finally get to using therapy is actually going to be junior year of college. And so again, I talked about struggling with friend issues from elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and then I actually go study abroad. And so this is actually like what I would say is like in a way my peak low, because throughout college, I spent a lot of it trying to make friends and not really being successful. And I poured all this energy into making friends, which is funny because people say like you shouldn't put an effort to make friends, but how are you going to make friends if you don't put an effort? It's just this vicious cycle, because it's people like when you're desperate, it shows. And I totally agree with that, because now that I don't care about making friends, I've made more friends. So clearly, yeah, desperation reeks. But the thing is, you're only desperate because you don't have it. So like, I still think that I put in that effort in order to get the friends to lead me to the point where I'm no longer desperate. So it's kind of a weird, really weird, complicated phenomenon. So anyways, junior year, I studied abroad in Korea, and I've mentioned also before that I was really depressed because I could, again, not make friends, because I was just, I've always just been very incapable of making friends my entire life, because the confidence, the self-esteem, yada, yada, yada. One way or another, I just wasn't able to. So I am in Korea, and obviously there's kind of lesser means to get English therapy because I'm in Korea. So what I do is I actually go to BetterHelp, which a lot of like influencers are, I don't know, promoting. Basically, I don't know if it was the first time that I was just talking to someone about my problems, and it was just over a Zoom video, and I just felt like the therapist didn't feel very professional. Yeah, she just kind of seemed like she was doing her job, and it just maybe wasn't a good fit. I feel like a lot of people don't see the best results with it, but if I'm being honest, if it is the only resource you can afford and have access to, I think that could be better than nothing. And then I also do believe that there must be some good therapists. I just think it is a little bit fewer than a more professional organization. So again, I don't know a lot about it, but I personally, with my therapist, I just didn't have the best experience. After that one session, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not doing that again. And then I reached out to BetterHelp, and then I was like, hey, I would like to cancel it and receive a refund. And they did refund me, which is kind of funny because they say it's not refundable. So honestly, in that sense, the customer service worked out really well for me, and I'm very glad that they were able to refund me that money because I cannot afford therapy. I just kind of got through Korea, you know, one way or another. I just survived. After that, I came out of it with like one extra friend, but that friend ended up being like a really, really good friend. So she was like, I don't know, maybe 5 friends worth of a friend. And so by then I was like, you know, I'm over it. I'm so sick of making friends. At this point, I'd had like maybe 4 or 5 friends in my life, and they were all very like distant and I guess not super present in my life, given you know, we're all busy. Like they were in schools, they were in different places, they're working. So yeah, so even though I had 5 friends, it really didn't feel like it, but I was like, you know what, like I'm over it. Like 5 friends it is, and then otherwise it was kind of like me trying to like enjoy my solitude and like me getting used to it, and I kind of was like, I guess exasperated in a way. I was just kind of like, this is just what it's gonna be, and like, okay, even 5 friends, like even 5 friends, like 5 friends ultimately I know isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, but as someone who had come from 0, I, yeah, really appreciate 5. You know, 5 was better than nothing, and even though I thought, okay, you know, things could be better, it was still at a point where I was grateful and it was enough for me to live for the rest of my life, you know? But then obviously I have made more friends at this point, and I do know a lot more people, and I think that's a huge reason why I was able to actually quit therapy. Which is what I will get on to a little later. So yeah, so I tried BetterHelp in Korea. I quit it because I'm just kind of like, okay, like this doesn't seem right. And then we're gonna fast forward to senior year, and my roommate actually is on therapy, and so I think that was a little bit of a trigger. And so I was like, okay, you know what, like I would really benefit from therapy. So I started therapy again, and honestly, it was just pretty useless. And I think I must have did that therapy for like 2 to 3 months, and I just felt like it wasn't really working. My memory of that therapist was that it was formatted in a way where she kept giving me like a lecture. It felt like a psych lecture every single time. She would talk about like cognitive dissonance and then show me this like triangle and give me this worksheet, and it was just a lecture, but a little bit was like, so what, like how do I overcome it? Even I can recognize that I have these kind of issues, like what is the difference of like putting a label on it? And she would just like assign me exercises and like deep breathing and stuff like that, and you know, it's easier said than done, you know. The thing is, especially because I'm pretty sure like I have a more chronic depression, like stuff like this just doesn't really help. And so, yeah, she just kept assigning me activities, and that just didn't like work well with me personally. So like one of the things is like if I'm spiraling, counting to 10 is not going to stop me from spiraling. Yeah, it just wasn't really a positive experience. And then I would ask to switch therapists. So then I switch therapists and I get the new one, and the new one goes, so what was wrong with your previous therapist? So I'm telling her like, oh yeah, she gave me these practices and exercises and it felt like a lecture, and yeah, I just didn't feel like it was very productive. And then she goes, oh yeah, like I'm gonna be a similar kind of therapist. I'm also like problem solving oriented, and maybe I should transition to a different kind of therapy, like a talk therapy, I think is kind of like what it was, like where it's an hour long and I just kind of able to express my emotions, which I do think is more beneficial to me personally, between like the two options of like someone just giving me like exercises and skills to use while you're like in certain situations and behaviors and like things to practice. That I don't think that really worked well for me. I just kind of really want to vent out my feelings. I think that was kind of the therapy that I think works with me better. And so I was in the middle of switching therapists at this time when they just didn't send me the email with my new therapist. So at this point I was like, it is so much effort to start therapy, you know? So at this point I was just kind of like, okay, I'm over it. Like I don't want to put in any more effort to get these therapy sessions. Okay, so then fast forward to now post-grad, actually. So junior year once, senior year like 2 to 3 months maybe, and now post-grad, my first year post-grad. As you know, I worked this job, and so you can hear about that in my I quit video. Long story short, I had a really, really rough time working a job that I thought was the dream job, and that completely destroyed my sense of self. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I could not sleep. I couldn't eat. I was constantly, my anxiety was probably peak Like, I was the most anxious I'd ever been in my life because I was so worried about underperforming, and I was so mentally unhappy and unstable that I had ended up losing a lot of weight, which is not healthy. And again, I started therapy after I quit the job, when I'm like, oh, I have time for therapy. Again, therapy would have benefited me most while I was working the job. Not that I think it would have ended up with me succeeding better in that job. I think that that job just wasn't a good fit for who I am now, and who I want to be is kind of where I'm going with that at the moment, like what I think about it. But anyways, so I started therapy, and so yeah, a good chunk of it is focused on this depression towards not having a job post-grad. And yeah, basically I do therapy for 6 months, and every single time, like when we talk about things of the past, I cry. And I would say this therapist felt very like a job, you know? Like, she wasn't very, like, I feel like she had a manual that she was abiding by, and it just felt so, I guess, obvious to me. Like, it didn't feel genuine, and it felt very insincere, and it felt like we were just kind of like textbook. It felt like a textbook therapist, in my opinion. And yeah, I didn't really like it. I don't think she was a bad person or anything, but after 5 months and no results, I finally was like, okay, like, maybe it's just time for me to switch therapists. Because 5 months in, I started to voice my concerns of like, you know, this is like what I think and how I'm feeling. Like, I'm kind of worried like therapy will never work for me because it's been 5 months and I've seen no difference. And I totally agree. Like, there's been no difference between me pre-therapy and post-therapy. And the bigger changes come with a lifestyle change, and that honestly had nothing to do with therapy. I'm like, hey, you know, maybe it's time for me to switch therapists, especially because like with my work schedule, it just wasn't working very well doing the therapy session whenever I was doing the therapy session. And so I switched therapists, and honestly, I think this last therapist that I had was actually my favorite therapist because she was really, really sweet. Like, she felt very human, she was very bubbly and very concerned about me, and she told me this at the end, after I wrapped up my sessions and told her I was going to stop therapy. She told me, so one thing that I really struggle with is my self-esteem. I kind of hate myself, which is interesting because I make videos, and obviously one would think you make videos because you like yourself and you think you're cool and you put yourself on the internet like that. No, I just do it and then kind of just, you know, see what happens. So basically she complimented me a lot, and she was just like, oh yeah, so like what I know about you, you're like this very driven person, but you like don't see yourself that way, and you've got all these things going for you, but you keep reaching for something out of your reach. And like, obviously this was all information that I knew, but it's just like kind of, I think when someone else listed it out for me, it was kind of like, oh, like, yeah, if I were a third person and I didn't know you're talking about me, I would think that that person's amazing. And like, why would they feel like they're not enough when they're all these things, you know? Her doing that was really sweet, and it sometimes like actually made me think about it again. Like when I was feeling really down and like pathetic, and just thinking about like, oh, you know, in another person's world, I am viewed as the person that they can't reach. The grass is always greener on the other side, right? And to some people, I might be that grass that's on the greener side. And yeah, that's not the reality. And so since I am not that green grass, when I think of other people living their best lives that I'm seeing through like social media, through real life, you know, the grass is not always greener over there, because like the way people see me, obviously I'm going through all these struggles, and I'm not like perfect. And so the people that I see that way, they also aren't perfect, and I'm sure one way or another something sucks in their life, because that's just what life is. Like, not everyone has a perfect life. I'm sure there are people that do, but yeah, most people are not perfect, and they're just hiding one insecurity or another, or like the stuff that's like not so good in their life. You know, you don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. So I feel like that was probably something helpful, but ultimately none of this is like has helped me recover from like my issues of like self-esteem and like things like that, and like the way I see myself. I would say the biggest thing is being simply in an environment where I am like loved for the first time. So the reason I quit therapy is actually because as you know, I started working a tennis job, and basically I started getting really busy with tennis. And so I'm actually now trying to transition into coaching. Also an update that I'm going to share in my next Making It Diaries video, because there's a lot of career things going on for me. So I feel like actually moving forward for once, which is weird because I've spent so much time, I feel like, stagnant. And having a goal, even though it's a little bit short term, is still better than nothing. But anyways, so yeah, therapy just started getting in the way of my social life. And if I'm being honest, my social life was a lot more important to me and my work was a lot more important to me than going to the therapy sessions. If I'm being honest, therapy honestly kind of felt like a hassle. Like, I would have rather played tennis an extra hour at work instead of coming home to do therapy, which I didn't feel was benefiting me over the like past 6 months that I'd been doing it. And maybe it's just this really, 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 really slow process. But like, even within 6 months, there is zero change. Like, if there was 1% change, I don't feel like there's 1% change. Like, I guess long term, eventually it would get better, but I really just don't think therapy works for me considering my issues. But anyways, so I decided to quit therapy because I honestly just having those happy moments of like tennis and like recently pickleball, like all these things have been just more important to me, and spending my time that way has been more important than the therapy because these things bring me joy. And I think honestly the culmination of all these like little joyful moments have honestly made me the most confident I've ever been in my life. So to talk about that a little more, it's less about how my mindset has changed, but more the environment that I'm in that has allowed me to become more confident and, yeah, happier, honestly. Like, right now is crazy because I would say I am the happiest I've ever been in my entire life, which is absolutely nuts to think about. So mainly on the job side, it's just like I've been getting a lot closer to my coworkers, so it's a lot more like playing tennis, a lot more playing pickleball, and also through pickleball I've actually made friends, which is a very new concept to me. And honestly, my pickleball friends are a decently good chunk of my life right now, especially because like I'm playing pickleball with them once or twice a week, and then we also will like hang out outside of pickleball, and yeah, like I'll text them, so they've become like this presence in my life. And it's very new because I've never really had that before. Again, I talked about struggling with like making friends, and here I am with friends that I like didn't expect. And then on one hand, another reason why like my self-esteem and everything has improved is just I think I said it earlier, but I am in an environment where I am so loved right now. Throughout high school, college, every other period of my life where I'm surrounded by peers, people just don't seem to like me. I don't know what it is. In a group situation, if you put me in a group of 20 people, I will be the one person that's incapable of making any friends in that group. And so right now it's really odd, but everyone seems to like me these days, which, not to toot my own horn, but yeah, at work, yeah, all the people, because I work at a club, so we have members that are here regularly, and a lot of them really, really like me. I'm pretty good at my job. I'm as nice as a person is at their job, I act socially acceptable and very, very nice and sweet, and that's just kind of what you have to do when you're at work anyway, so it's not like anything weird. But yeah, people really, really like me there. All my coworkers really, really like me, and I really like all my coworkers too, which is kind of crazy considering I feel like I just generally hate people, but I, for some reason, just love all my coworkers. I guess tennis people are just great. It's like the first time that I feel like I've been surrounded by so many people that just like me. And I think that's done a lot for my self-esteem because it's like, oh, these people see me as this like good person, and it's just like constantly being happy. I feel like that has made a huge difference. So there's that, and then obviously I mentioned pickleball, and the thing about pickleball is because I play tennis, I'm like pretty good. I'm better than the average woman, and it's just been really nice because, yeah, just beating up men, it's a lot of fun. It's done a lot for me, it's starting, because my day-to-day life is like this, I'm starting to forget what it was like to be hated all the time. Okay, I say that I'm starting to forget, but it feels more like a vague memory than my reality, which is funny because on days that I have a really tough time, I spiral and I go back to that place where I feel like I'm that girl that nobody likes. But at the same time, I just have a lot more now, like considering like the amount of friends I have or just the people in my life, it's just additive, so like all these people, those 5 friends I had, I've like grown upon them. Now I have 6, now I have 7, now I have 8, and these numbers are just feeling very, very crazy to me. And it's also that at the same time with like the YouTube thing. So like I actually today, the day that I'm filming this video is actually the day that I hit 10,000 subscribers. Wow. Which is unreal to me, and I said it in the post and I'm still like saying this now. I can't imagine that number. What does 10,000 people even look like? Why do 10,000 people choose to click a button to subscribe to me? like, why would anyone watch any one of my videos? Why would anyone care about anything I have to say? But you know, these days, even if it's just like one or two of you, that's still more than people have generally cared about me throughout my life. So yeah, it's unreal. It means the world to me. And so I also think that that has a little bit of my, like, I don't know, my shoulders kind of up. You know, I've got some sort of like pride in that because yeah, some people do this YouTube thing and it just doesn't really work out. But for me, obviously, it's not like completely worked out. Like sometimes I keep thinking like, oh, I could be at 100K, I could be at 200K, I could be at 300K, I could be at 1 million. I know it takes YouTubers sometimes much smaller times to reach those numbers. Whereas me, I've been technically doing this for 4 years now, really picking it up in the past year or so, and I'm sure people see better results within the same time with the same amount of effort I've put in. But you know, it's still better than nothing because there's also people that have put in more effort, more time, and are seeing less results than I am. So I'm grateful for everything that I have. 10,000 was not a number that I actually thought I could hit, especially because it took me 4 years to hit 1,000. So at that point, obviously when I started YouTube, I was delusional and I thought, oh, I could hit 100,000 in a year. That did not happen, clearly. So then after 4 years, I've kind of reduced my expectations. But yeah, so that's just another thing that's just like really felt like it's working out. And then on terms of the freelance side, that's also been really, that's been like something that exists, you know. And really another thing is the transitioning from just working in the shop to becoming a coach. It's for me, one thing that I really love about it is being able to have a goal, because previously, I was not a coach, and now I'm reaching a time in my life where I will be a coach, and I will actually have disposable income, hopefully, because you make a decent money coaching. And the thing about that is that's going to be very flexible, and I'm going to be able to work my own hours. And honestly, that flexibility is a lot, because for me, I actually do want to keep pursuing this YouTube thing until I make a career out of it. And it's less about being a full-time YouTuber, but being able to explore options once you have a platform and some sort of following to, yeah, I just want to do something in this realm, and YouTube was kind of the way to start it. And so I'm going to continue doing this until I really figure out like what exactly it is I want to do. And I'm sure as I do this, opportunities will come and I'll like figure things out. So it's so nice being able to do all this like contract freelance work and being able to work on this at the same time. And I feel like now that the money aspect is a little more there, I'm starting to feel a little bit less bad about not working the traditional 9 to 5, which is funny because I recently did an editing gig where I worked in 9 to 6 and I realized, wow, I hated this. And that was actually the company that I thought I was going to get a full-time offer from. So ultimately, it really did work out that I didn't get any jobs and that I didn't work a 9 to 5, because I would probably be a lot mentally worse off than I am now. And yeah, it's kind of crazy because I really did hit rock bottom to really hit the peak of my life. Yeah, I didn't expect to be so happy now. I didn't expect I could ever be this happy. And yeah, it's like the first time that I'm really feeling like good about myself and happy with my like solitude. Because sometimes I feel like I've been focusing so much about friendships and relationships and things. Like, I feel like I needed people to fill my life. Whereas right now I feel like on my own, I'm very comfortable being by myself, and I have things that I want to do that, you know, people are always great to have in my life, but I feel like I'm not as desperately like relying on other people and someone else to, you know, be happy, because I think right now I've got a lot of things that I want to focus on my own time. And that's nice, you know, being able to actually be independent and not, because like especially when it comes to friendship issues and like relationship issues, you need someone else there to resolve that. And so right now, the things that I have in my life that I'm trying to work out, it all is something that I can do on my own, and having that kind of power and control has been a lot to me. And so yeah, I feel very in control of my life right now, and I actually see a future for once, because I'm not gonna lie, the future aspect was a little dreary as I considered, am I really just gonna be working a minimum wage job for the rest of my life? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to see the beginning of a successful career, of my hopefully rich era, of my hopefully, yeah, successful, happy, stable. And the one thing is, I'm not gonna lie that like everything is always happy rainbows, butterflies, you know. I think I still struggle with a lot of things that had happened in my childhood, you know, that had like traumatized me. And I do think that I struggle with like emotional regulation. I still get really, really upset and devastated. I still spiral. And I think I still do have a lot of unhealthy mindsets and like, what do they call them? Thought traps or whatever I learned in therapy. And honestly, therapy just wasn't helping me work through them on the way that time has. I think honestly, time and situation have helped me a lot more in that area, more than anything else, which is why I quit therapy. I don't think therapy is necessarily a bad thing. I do think that it does work for some people and it doesn't work for others. I know my therapists tell me that therapy works for everyone, but personally, I just don't think it worked for me, and maybe it just doesn't work for me at this point in my life, because it is something so old and it's ongoing, and it's just like not something you can really fix overnight, and it's something that I'm already aware of, so I'm already constantly like working on it and thinking about it and reflecting. So I honestly think that that is going to be more beneficial in addition to like everything else that I'm doing with my life that is keeping me so busy right now. And yeah, I just wanted to share my experience, especially for those who are also similarly struggling. I just wanted to share like my experience so that it could help you, I don't know, feel better about yours, or maybe help you decide you want to do therapy. And just, I guess this is also a video to show you that, like, you know, everyone's not perfect. I think that's like a big one of my missions as I do social media, is to show the good sides and the bad sides, and that, you know, life is full of up and downs. It might look very great behind closed doors, but you never know what's going on. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to open my doors, so that you know that like life is like this for everyone. And yeah, maybe that'll help you in some way. Or so yeah, thank you so much to each and every one of you that have watched my videos. And even if you're new, I really appreciate you, because, you know, that's 10,000 and some. And that's still a lot more than I ever imagined in my life. And so yeah, that is all for today. And I'll see you in the next one with a lot more details and updates on career and things like that, and just what's going on with my life, because I'm also doing some traveling. And so yeah, I'll be talking about that a little bit more, and kind of rambling a little bit, but yeah, that is all for today, and I'll see you in the next one.